A lot of y'all are stuck in the house, bored in the house, and I'm no different from you guys. However, the one thing that has kept me going, kept me interested, is playing some difficult or challenging video games. Why is that? Well, I'm gonna get into that later on in the video, but this whole video, think of it as like a tribute or a thank you to challenge as a whole, because as of recently, from like, let's say 2009 on up, a lot of games and a lot of companies has been trying to make games simple, make games easy, make them accessible, which fine, I'm not gonna argue. Not every game needs to be, we're nailing your fingers to the wall, now you gotta rip them off and press this one button. No. But just getting rid of challenge as a whole, nah, I can't rock with that one either. Oh, before I forget, I finally made myself an intro. Is it gonna be the last one? No, probably not, but it's one to start out with. I cannot wait to show y'all. Woohoo, it took me a long time to make this, so we here, let's go.
I said empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
So what makes a game challenging? When I break it down and I look back at it, I believe there's at least 3 to 4 different aspects that really showcase a game's challenge. The first part is difficulty. So in any game that you play, the enemies that you have, the platforming that you have, the level design that you have, all those things play a part in difficulty. So what you as a player are actually interacting with physically, that is what I consider difficulty. Next thing, now that we have that out the way, let's talk about execution, or in other ways, how easy or hard a move or ability or movement abilities that you have, how hard are they to do, and how hard are they to do consistently. If you have one move that is a button press, like you press the A button, that's a lot harder on the surface than doing a quarter circle forward in a button press. And also, with the how many different versions of those moves do you have, or how many moves do you have in general, and speaking of mechanics, how far do each of those mechanics go? Like, let's say we have a fireball, right? Or any move. How many uses does that one move have versus any other move that you have, as well as how many uses does that one move have in the level? So if you jump, do you have a double jump? Can you extend your jump? Do they only go through one platform? Then can they go under a platform? You know what I mean? It really depends on the game in question, but how many things can you do with the game or the moves in the game that you have? And then you also have the competition, which honestly, it doesn't really work in single player games all that much, but I guess how you fight against the AI could be considered competition. But to me, competition really only matters in multiplayer when you're playing against real life human opponents, and it doesn't matter which multiplayer game you pick, it's all the same. There is a fine line between something being challenging and something being way too difficult, but in between those things is when it gets fun. Now for me, personally, short play cycles are the name of the game. When you're playing something and you get really stuck and it's super difficult, when you die, right, and you come back, when the checkpoint to death ratio is really small, that means you die, snap, you come right back, man, trust me, let me tell you something, that it takes a lot of stress off your mind when you don't gotta go 30 minutes in to go back to the same boss you just died to or whatever like that. The next thing is the flow state. Now we're gonna get into the flow state later on, but if you've never heard of it, just think of let's go with Ultra Instinct, okay? So if you've seen Ultra Instinct Goku, the way that he kind of moves without moving, and he's like in the perfect state of mind between thinking and doing, but there's not really thought, or like when Bruce Lee says be like water, that's what the flow state is in simpler terms. Speaking of the flow state, when you have a goal in mind, right? When the goal is simple and is right there and is clear and you are motivated to do it, that's what makes the challenge fun. For example, if we're at a certain part in the level and I know that the ending is past this certain jump, if I'm motivated to do this jump, that makes the challenge of actually completing the jump much more rewarding than if I was just to say run straight line. and now I beat the level, you know what I mean? And when the difficulty itself is balanced, which means that for the player's current skill level, right? For how good let's use me as an example. For how good I am, the skill is not too high to where this shit is super hard and I can't even fathom what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to do it. But it's not too easy to where I'm just running through. It's not giving me any sort of like stimulation, or I'm not even excited about it. I'm just doing it because it's just easy to do. So let's just keep using me as an example. If I feel like I have the ability and the desire and I feel responsible, like I'm playing the game and I feel like it's up to me to do this and only I can do this, or not only I can do this, but I feel like I'm gonna get something out of doing it, then there you go. Then you've already succeeded, because now I personally feel like completing this challenge is part of me playing the game. And if I've done this before in the past, like if there's been other challenges and I've been successful in doing these, like beating a hard level, learning a new ability, getting through this certain part that I was stuck on, you know, beating this boss, whatever the challenge is, if I've done that enough times in the past and I've been successful at it, then that momentum should carry me on to continue to keep going until I hit a wall or I get bored of the game, which, if you do this correctly, shouldn't really happen all that often. All this talk about challenge being fun and it's gonna be great and it's what makes video games, it's all good, but it's not the only part, because there's a lot of times, let me tell you, when challenging is not fun, and here's why. For one, if you have a long play cycle, meaning if I'm playing 30 minutes, an hour and a half at a time, and that entire time I'm not either A, succeeding, or B, I'm getting beat, I'm not having fun. The difficulty is too high. If I'm at a boss, and okay, obviously bosses are supposed to be harder than most other parts of the game, cool, I get that. Now, if the boss is doing shit I've never seen before, I don't understand how to beat it, or it's just simply too hard to beat them, we're at a fine line, because either if I'm motivated to keep going, then cool. But if he's curb stomping my shit in and I don't even feel like playing the game no more, I'm quitting. Another thing, if there's no reasonable reason, by reasonable reason, I know it sounds silly, but when you're doing something and you're looking at it and you're like, why am I doing this? What is the point? If I'm literally playing a game and it wants me to do some super hard task, right? And it only gives me 1 point for the super hard task, what is the point of doing it? Like, what am I getting out here except just doing the challenge for the challenge itself, which if I was doing that, then complaining about the challenge sounds really stupid. Obviously the example's exaggerated, that way you understand it, or you see it more clearly, but it doesn't have to be that obvious. Okay, honestly, these next 2 points are very similar, so I'm gonna put them into one, but if the skill gap is too wide, or there's too high of an execution barrier, I'm not even gonna want to do it. But I mean by both those things, if I'm a level 5 and the boss I'm fighting is a level 30, it's too high of a skill gap. There's no reason why a level 5 me should try to fight a level 30 boss and I have any sort of fun. It's gonna be way too overstimulating, call back to what I said earlier, for you to even want to play that in the first place. And the last thing is that execution barrier. If I'm playing Sonic, or any game for that matter, if A button is jump, and now I have to do A button, B button, C button to go and do the next jump, that's gonna be kind of a high execution barrier in order to beat the next part if I have to do A, B, B, C, instead of just pressing A, or maybe A here and then A there. You know what I'm saying? Man, when I tell you that I have felt the most emotions that I felt in arguably a very long time playing these games for this video, or just playing them for fun, I'm not gonna lie to you now. I was shocked. I did not expect to feel this wide range of things, from pride to anger to happiness, and to be honest, I didn't think I would ever do that, but when I look back into it, I can kind of see why. You know, video games are interactive, so instead of me just watching a movie and I'm feeling happy about something, if I'm playing a game, I'm actually doing something, and the result of that is what's gonna make me happy. Because like I just said, I wasn't just me watching something happen, I was the one who made it happen. On the flip side, when some shit did not go right, I felt angered like you would not believe. especially when I was doing the same thing over and over again. I kept losing, I didn't understand why, or I understood why and I couldn't do it, or I was playing something and I figured out a strategy, but just because I figured it out doesn't mean the game is just going to magically hand it to you. You have to actually do it. Or, you know, you felt frustration, or I felt frustration when I just got so sick and tired of losing to the same thing I already figured out half an hour before, but it didn't matter because my skill was not high enough to... You see what I'm saying? Like, if you just listen to how I just said all that, could you feel that? Because that shit was not fun sometimes. But when I did it though, when I completed it, man, them dopamines was definitely firing off in my brain, let me tell you something. I've been stressed up by games this last 2 months a lot, and I want to make sure that you guys are not. So I came up with some things that helped me, which I know will help you. The first thing is just make some small progress goals. Do not start with trying to beat the whole game unless you are that guy or girl, because that's going to be the easiest way for you to not play no more. Instead of the whole game, why don't we just try one level? Why don't we try just getting past this one enemy? Why don't we try just getting past this one section of a level? Small progress goals are your friends. Put small progress goals first, big progress goals second, and then combine the two and you'll have a much more enjoyable experience. This is a pro tip, but keep your momentum. If you're doing good and you're on a roll and you're in the flow state like I was talking about earlier, try to stay in there as much as you can, because it sucks to get to like from level 1 to like level 8 when the game really thinks that you're good, and then you stop for like a week or two and you come back and you lost that momentum and you don't remember how to play. Don't be that guy or girl. Just keep it going. But on the same token, if you do need to take a break, whether you're getting bored, you have something to do, somebody's giving you a call, you just want to not burn the game out, perfect, take that break, but just know what you're getting into once you take that break. Also, learning how to play other games that aren't as stressful is key. If you're playing a super hard, challenging game, there's no reason, if you're really getting stuck, to keep playing that game over and over and over and over and over again. Take a break, stick on that one, then pick a game that's easier, maybe an hour from now, 2 hours from now, or play it for a whole day, you know what I mean? Also, fun fact, do other things in between. It's in quarantine right now, which inspired this video, but you could watch a TV show, watch a movie, hang with your significant other. I don't know how you get down, so I'm not going to assume. You know what I mean? You could cook something. If you find other things to do in between playing the hard game, is going to make both those activities a lot more valuable, because now you've had your chance to detune, but now you've got to come back and you've got to conquer that challenge, because I know you're not going to give up, and I have faith that you're going to come back and kill that shit. So just kill it. Find checkpoints and save often. I cannot tell you enough. That is like my number one advice. You can make your own play cycle. No more half hour, hour long. You die? Guess what? Loading the file right back, and it never happened. Save states are included in that. I'm going to get to them in a quick second, but just know that comes with its own set of challenges. Believe me. Look, I'm going to keep it $150 with y'all. There's different types of difficulty. After playing like, I don't know how many games during this quarantine, corona, whatever you want to call it, during this whole thing, I've definitely seen that there's one difficulty mode and then the multiple difficulty mode. Now, what does that mean if you've never thought of this? Okay, so let's say you start a game like, I don't know, Super Mario Brothers, right? You start that game, there is no difficulty. Or I should say there's no difficulty mode, right? You start the game, boom, that's it. There's no picking normal, picking hard mode, picking easy mode. No, the developer made the game, and they made the game in a specific way. Now it's up to you as a player to play it. When you have multiple difficulties, on the other hand, like a game like Halo, that's not the case. You can pick easy, normal, heroic, legendary. Obviously, as you go up and up, it gets harder, but what does that mean? What gets harder? How do they make a game harder? How do they make a game easier? So you get to, as a player, choose which experience that you want to have, but as a developer, it's kind of hard for you to figure out how do I make each experience is equal or as interesting without, I don't know, sacrificing the game. Both aren't bad, both have their points, they're both useful, but it's just something to notice. That's not even beginning to talk about a multiplayer difficulty, which takes all that thing you were doing in single player and moves it to the multiplayer, which is different because now both players have to play against each other. So things like game balance and execution and depth come into play, because now one player is really good than the other one, the other person who's getting their ass beat is not going to have as much time. And in a competitive game, there's got to be one winner and one loser, but that doesn't feel good to lose either way. Now, me personally, I was recently trying to do this whole thing where I want to be super good and I want to go back and I want to play all the hard games on the hardest difficulty and prove I can do this. And then one of my associates or friends was like, hey man, why don't you just start the game on normal? That way you have an idea of what the game is supposed to be like, quote unquote. And then you can go easier or harder if you need to. And you know, after a while I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. So I recommend everyone do that. You know, if you start a new game, you don't know what easier is or what harder is if you don't know what normal is. But how do you know if normal mode is the mode for you? It might be too hard. It might be too easy. There might be something in playing harder difficulties than you're used to that might have the experience be better for you, but you don't know that. But you also don't want to be too overstimulated and not play the game because the shit was way too hard for you. But since you pick hard mode, the game was like, oh, okay, you got this. At first, when he told me this, I felt some type of way because honestly, when I pick easy mode, I feel a little weak, a little embarrassed, like, damn, I'm playing on easy mode, I'm such a scrub. But like I was saying, I don't want to pick hard mode and be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm that guy. And then I'm getting beat and I can't play the game because I suck. Because it's not fun knowing that you suck, but it's not fun thinking that you're being like, it's too easy for you, you know? So trying to find the balance is key. We're finally at the save state part, and this is very controversial because even in my own life, I've definitely felt weird about it. But then at other times, I've been like, oh yeah, we definitely use the save states. Because I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to lie to you, they changed the pace and the structure of the game, okay? If you're playing a game that was never designed to have saves at all, and now you're all of a sudden just save stating wherever you feel like it, that changes the way you think about the game. It changes the way you approach the game as a whole. For example, I play Resident Evil 2 right now. I never played it before. I'm going through it. This is my first time. The game was never meant to be able to just save at any point. They have ink ribbons, and you have certain save points, and you have limited saves. I still do that because I still want that experience, and sometimes I forget where I was at in the save state. But 9 times out of 10, I'm using a save state as well because it just makes the game easier, and I think about the game a lot differently. If I use too many bullets, I'm reloading. If I die at a certain spot, I'm reloading. If I don't like the way that I use my equipment, we're reloading. You know what I mean? That's not how the game was meant to be played, so it's making the game a lot different. Though that's not a bad thing, because even though I'm saving over the spot, or I'm saving at certain spots, I still have to do the thing. Like, if I have to make this jump, and I save right before the jump comes up, if I'm missing the jump, just because I get a game over does not mean the jump magically stops. Like, if I save there, I still have to do the jump. It's not like the game just plays it for me. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. But I also get to try over and over again without any delay, which goes back into what I was saying about the whole, short play cycles, long play cycles, frustrated over and over again. But that can also make it worse because instead of you having to wait and take time, you literally jump right back to where you're at. So if you are stuck, you are going to be stuck at that exact same spot every time. It's just going to get worse and worse for you. So me personally, I'm not going to tell you to save state. I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't save state. I'm just going to say be aware of what it does to your gaming experience, and if you're okay with that, go for it. If you're not okay with that, then don't do it. You could do both. You could save and save state. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we've made it to the flow state section, and honestly, I know I said think of Ultra Instinct and be like water, which is true, but now I'm going to tailor it to games and get into a little bit more detail. There are 4 steps that a game needs to hit and hit correctly for the player to hit that cognitive flow that I keep talking so much about. The first one is that a game should have concrete goals with easy to understand rules. Let's just keep using Sonic as a clear example. In that game, the goal is to get from one side of the screen to the other as fast as possible. One of the rules in that game, you can get hit as many times as you want, as long as you have at least 1 ring. If you don't have any rings, you die no matter what. Another rule is if you fall into a pit, you're done. You fall on spikes, you're pretty much done depending on the game, but on average, there are a few key areas that help you understand how the game is supposed to be played. If you get hit, if you fall in a pit, if you fall on spikes, you're going to stop moving forward. The second step is that a game should only demand actions that fit within a player's capabilities, aka a game should only ask you to do things that you should be able to reasonably think to do. So for example, when I'm playing Doom Eternal, each gun is tied to a different monster's weakness. Or in other words, every demon in the game has a certain way that they can be killed easier, right? And every time you get a new gun, they'll show you at least a little bit of how the gun works. And as you keep going in levels, they'll throw this different demons at you, and then you use what you've learned before, and then you also throw that in with something new. Okay, that makes sense. Concrete goals, easy to understand rules. What's not easy to understand is if all of a sudden, in the middle of the game, Doom Guy is just magically dropped into a go-kart, and now you gotta play a Tetris minigame while driving. Or you gotta do a minigame like in Battletoads. What about that is anything like me shooting demons with guns and trying to find their weakness and killing them in a hallway or in a enclosed space? Nothing about that screams anything like what I was just doing, so asking a player to do that throws them out of the cognitive state. The more times you do that, honestly, once is way too much, but the more you do that, the more your players can be like, you know what? I don't want to do this shit no more. Or this doesn't make sense. It's just throwing random things at me. And you don't want the player to start questioning how you're making your game, because then it's just not a good look. A game should give clear and timely feedback on player performance. That's the third step, and I can't think of a better game that does that than Devil May Cry 3. Now in this game, there's a such thing as a stylish rank, okay? And it goes from D all the way to triple S. How does it go higher? Well, you have to play more stylishly. How do you do that? Well, the different moves you use in a certain time frame. If you get hit, it goes down, but if you don't get hit, it goes up. If you do a taunt in the middle of it, your grade goes up again. If you use your different style buttons, so if you pick Trickster, if you're dashing around the stage or dashing between combos, if you use Sword Master, if you use your different weapons, the extra abilities, Gunslinger, same thing with the guns. Royal Guard, you're able to block, you're able to reflect your blocking gauge back at them, things like that. But basically, the game wants to give you that feeling of playing stylishly because that's the main goal of the game. And with this grading system, it makes it very clear. It makes it super satisfying when you're doing really well. Also, it makes you know when you're doing really bad, but it's clear. And you can easily see your progress mid-gameplay. And that's the best part. The fourth and final step is that a game should remove any extra information that inhibits the player. What does that mean? Basically, if the game has any extra displays or anything extra on its HUD that gets in the way of you understanding what's going on, cut it out. To be honest, I feel that fighting games are the best way to look at this point because everything on their HUD is in some way, shape, or form pertaining to the gameplay or the information you need to succeed. You can look at any fighting game. Let's just use Dragon Ball FighterZ as an example. You can see the health bar, right? Each health bar for each of your characters on your team in the order that they would come in is shown. Also in the middle is a timer that, obviously tells how long you have in a match. Then you have the sparking meter, which shows you if you still have sparking or not. And when you use it, it shows you what level sparking you have. And if you look at the bottom, you can see your, let's call it special move meter, basically. So you can see how much meter you have. Do you have moves for EXs? Do you have moves for your hyper combos or your supers? You can see what number you have at the far left or the far right, depending on which side you're on. That shows you how much meter that you actually have. A fighting game really wants to keep you in the action and make each information segment easy to understand and easy to look at and look back. Because you don't want to distract. If I'm playing in a match, I don't want to have to scan the screen for 15 seconds to find my health bar. That's not helpful for anybody. So they make each thing easy to look at, easy to present. Boom, I'm looking at it, I'm in the match, alright, we're good. See what I'm saying? Because now you're able to stay in your flow and you're able to focus on the match more. And obviously the concrete goals and the things like that I've already talked about come into play even more. Yo, what's up everybody? How you doing? Thank you for making it to the end of the video because like I always say, you don't have to be here, but you chose to be here, and I appreciate that. Think of this video as like my little tribute to challenge as a whole in gaming because one, this quarantine got me stressing, or at least it's got me thinking about things differently, so trying to get better and